So the picture there. Next sets up committee to decentralize police operations. It comes with one rider. Showore others protest against arrest of journalists. Let's take a look at more stories trending. At the foot of the Guardian newspaper, CBN banks to revive real sector with 4 trillion naira facility. PDP decries Buhari's delay in signing electoral bill, and Nemasa boss Dakuku Peterside calls for single-digit fund to boost cabotage law.
All right, we'll take a look now at the Nigerian Tribune. The Nigerian Tribune, the lead story is also on security issues, and that has to do with one of the resolutions yesterday at the National Economic Council. Security, that's the kicker. Federal government, governors ready to decentralize policing, with 3 riders interagency issues hampering security coordination. That's attributed to the National Security Advisor. And states MDAs owe 41 billion naira in VAT. And governors hire lawyers to challenge EFCC security vote probe. That is to be found on page 4. The stalemate over the INEC budget for the 2019-18 election is also there. But I believe, Joy, just before we continue with the other headlines, let's take a look at some of these stories. The resolve by the state governors to challenge the EFCC probe of security votes at the state level, I think it's a welcome development.
That's right. For our democracy, that is how it should be.
That's right.
And
that's right. I believe so. That's because there were reports that the EFCC was demanding the minutes of the security meeting of one of the state governments. I believe it's Benue State or otherwise. Of course, if that is in line with their forensic search for evidence of malfeasance or corruption or otherwise, then that's a matter for the courts to determine. Is it the minutes of the meeting that you are looking for, or extract of the minutes, or the purposes for which, I mean, assuming votes were indicated for certain security operations? And I think that it's important for them to go to court to seek clarification of this. Who should have access to the minutes of the Security Council meeting? That's the State Security Council meeting. Now, you also have the State Executive Council meetings. That's the Governor Council or the Federal Executive Council meetings. Who has a right to demand for the minutes or extracts of the minutes of those meetings? And to what extent, of course, can you go? Is this a matter for the EFCC? Do you need a court subpoena to table those issues, or any investigative authority can simply just, all right, let us have the minutes of your meeting?
hopefully the court will clarify all that.
That's right. That's right. And then, of course, the issue of the budget for INEC is one that is continuing. It's a running story. The disagreement is not unexpected.
We've said that severally on the show while discussing the issue about the National Assembly and deliberations about the budget. So it's expected.
That's right. Okay, now there's a story on the front page of the Punch newspaper, right at the foot of the front page, and I'm sure those who've been following the story since yesterday would have apprehended this copy. Of the three headlines there, we're taking the middle one. Queen of Soul, Aretha Franklin, dies at 76. The stories will be found in greater detail on page 12. She passed away at her home in Detroit. She had been suffering from cancer. She's an award-winning, multiple award-winning musician, singer, and the crooner of our generation. The Queen of Soul, Aretha Franklin, dead at 76. And beside that, you have another headline: Court threatens to imprison Inspector General of Police for alleged contempt. And that will go forward, upward now. So protesters storm police headquarters over detained Premium Times reporter. You can see the photograph there, and of course, the other headlines.
All right, let's go back quickly to the New Telegraph for some stories there. Above the nameplate is this one, which says CBN banks lost 1.63 billion naira to e-fraud in 2017, refunded 5.98 billion excess charges. Forex inflow hits 91 billion naira. And then below the nameplate are some stories. Oyo residents protest planned demolition of Ayefele's house. Emir of Dara to Turban Kalu as done Baiwa Hausa. And Kwara toddler bodies found in septic tank. That's
yeah, pretty sad there.
Yes,
that's a sad development. The story on the planned demolition of the music house, that's what it's called, of Yinka Ayefele. Ayefele, of course, is a gospel singer, but he has that facility there.
Physically challenged.
Yeah, physically challenged, and it's very immensely popular.
Yes.
He has the studios. He also has a radio station in that building. Now, the claim by the authorities is that the building and its location contravene the planning code for the city. That in the past they had served notices on the property, but they are the.
So would they make alternative arrangements for him? That should be the.
Well,
the
that's not
right
necessarily the argument now. They had the owners of the property have also argued that, look, the authorities, including the governor, they say had in the past come to visit the premises and were quite impressed with what they saw, and that it would appear that perhaps whenever the tinge of political broadcast is unfavorable, then you have a few political operatives who will say, hey, listen, this property is standing in the right of way, otherwise we'll take it down. But I'm sure this is a matter that is potentially, explosive. There are photographs in the Punch newspaper on page 5, for instance, showing protesters at the premises, against, of course, having placards against the planned demolition of Yinka Ayefele's property. Now, very crucially, Joy, you recall we had discussed this again. INEC has extended the continuous voters registration exercise. It was supposed to have ended today. It's not due to end at the end of this month. August. That's the 31st of August. Now, there is a report on pages 4 and 5 of the Punch. We can't upload that on the screen right away. And the headline is as follows: Lagos residents sleep at INEC office over voter registration. And this is taking place at Ikorodu. Why do we have to punish ourselves this way?
I know. Just 2 days ago on one of our current affairs program, we had someone from INEC coming, and these were some of the questions we're asking. He attributed it to last-minute rush. But I said, INEC should be ready, knowing that this is a tradition in Nigeria.
I agree with you. I agree. And then, of course, you remember there are allegations, with regard to the holding of forms, and some of the officers and themselves are unavailable, or their equipment could be malfunctioning. So why can't we have a seamless process? I'm not sure that you have 1 million persons who are seeking to register in Ikorodu at this time.
That's right. All right, let's go quickly to our editorial for the day, and it's taken from the Nigerian Tribune. It is captioned, MPC on saving for a rainy day. That's Monetary Policy Committee. The Monetary Policy Committee of the Central Bank of Nigeria at the end of its July meeting observed that the federal government had not imbibed the culture of saving for a rainy day despite the surge in its earnings from crude oil proceeds. The committee, in the communique read by the CBN Governor, Mr. Godwin Emefiele, premised its observation on the increase in the share of each of the tiers of government from the Federation Account Allocation Committee FAC, submitting that this trend portended grave danger for the economy. We align ourselves with the submission of the Apex Bank. The recession experienced in the country between 2016 and 2017 was partly precipitated by the failure of the immediate past administration to save when crude oil was selling at over $100 per barrel. This was roundly condemned by many members of the present administration, including President Muhammadu Buhari. It is therefore bewildering that this government is towing the same infamous and inglorious pathway of spending money as it earned.
Well, that's right. It's a very, very significant point there made by the leader writer with regard to saving for a rainy day on account of the advisory by the Monetary Policy Committee of the CBN. We can't...
And knowing that this is not new, we've gone through the same
precisely, we
before.
can't continue to live from hand to mouth. Yeah. The various tiers of government, especially the subnationals, must find ways of better financial management, so that it is not whenever you are broke, you say, all right, hit the excess crude account, download it, we have to pay salaries, we have to do all of that. It's the same way you saw when the Sovereign Wealth Fund was created. We had objections to it, again, from the subnational authorities with regard to, there was no constitutional provision. But when you take a look at the Fiscal Responsibility Act, the Fiscal Responsibility Act of 2007 actually provides, for a savings mechanism, once you have excess earnings on account of the budgetary benchmark for crude oil and any price that is over and above that. And the country has, in recent times, consistently earned over and above the crude oil benchmark. So it's significant that we save. And of course, when you are saving, it means that you are also denying yourself of some, shall we say, pleasures or leisures at the moment, so that when the rainy day does come, then you have a pool, yes, you have a pool of resources to draw from. If we blow all our money, all our resources on recurrent expenditure, we shall continually be in trouble. So that's a very significant editorial there coming from the Nigerian Tribune. That's the much that we can take. But just before we go, we don't have the story on the front page, otherwise we would have uploaded it. There is a story that Gombe, there's a snake bite treatment and research center in Gombe State. It's exporting 400 snakes every month to Liverpool in England.
Gombe State? Gombe.
Exporting. Well, it's not to earn foreign exchange, it's to produce anti-snake venom serum for utilization because of the incidents. The snakes that have been exported include vipers and pawfadders, 400 of them, and it is cheaper, they say, when you export the snake and it goes to England and the anti-snake venom serum is produced, then it comes back much cheaper. That's what they're doing, 400 snakes every month. They must have a huge population of snakes in that location. All right, so that does it for us on this review segment. We'll take a short break now. When we return, our topic for conversation is on how to cope with Nigeria's 91 political parties. Come one, come all.
Hate speech is not a joke. It incites genocide and crimes against humanity. Most of Africa's civil wars are caused by hate speech from one tribe against another. We don't want it here. The Nigerian government stands firm against hate speech.
Under no conditions whatsoever should we tolerate or excuse or justify hate speech or hateful conduct of any kind, especially where such is illegal.
There's no doubt that the resurgent push for separatism, as well as the rising cases of ethnic and religious disharmony, are all traceable to the growing phenomenon of hate speech.
One nation bound in freedom, peace and unity.
Nigeria, one nation, one people.
This is a public service announcement brought to you by NTA.
These days, people get their news and information from more media sources than ever before. Some of the news and information given are fake, unverified, doctored, and manufactured to create confusion, stir disaffection, and cause disunity. Before you believe or share any news, ask yourself, is this real? Is it from a credible source? Is it verified or verifiable? Fake news is dangerous. Whether you do it for fun or for political gains, real people can get hurt. Fake news, don't create it, don't spread it.
This is a public service announcement from NTA.
Winning in hot and dry conditions is hard. Causes the body to sweat, which attracts germs that are easily passed from one person to another.
What keeps you so cool, man?
Dettol Cool combines Dettol's protection and an invincible icy feel. For super cool confidence, use Dettol Cool.
Dettol soap is now also available for 100 Naira only.
Madam. Brought us as usual.
As usual. You have no problem.
For the three
you are welcome, sir.
As usual, yeah?
Welcome. You take that one.
Yeah.
Take that one.
You don't understand? We want Nigerian homegrown rice. Finish. You don't have? You don't have?
Join the rice revolution today.
No other rice that tastes like Nigerian rice. Are you sorry? That's the Nigerian rice we are talking about. Chocolate made in Nigerian rice. Healthy food. I'm going to bring Mrs. Mobu to come to chocolate rice made in Nigeria here. And see how it are made.
Correct.
And how they are cook it.
Correct.
Homegrown rice are good for your health. It will boost our economy and will give employment to our people.
This message is brought to you by the Federal Ministry of Information and Culture.
For years, the NTA has been promoting science, technology, arts and crafts under the tagged name National Children's Expo. We are set with another edition as we gather children around Nigeria, junior category ages 6 to 12 and senior category ages 13 to 18. The theme for Expo 2018, achieving self-sufficiency in agriculture, meeting the challenges of security and exposition of alternative energy as pathways to national development. Date, October 21st to 25th, 2018. Venue, NTA Headquarters Arena, Area 11, Garki, Abuja. We are set to celebrate the best of innovation across the country. For more information, please call the following numbers. NTA ETV, promoting learning.
All right, welcome back. But if you just tune in, it's Good Morning Nigeria, and we're reaching you live on the network service of the Nigerian Television Authority. As a prompt for our conversation this morning, let's take this background down from our correspondent, Aisha Ubali.
Democracy operates on the principle of popular mandate, freely given to elected persons by the people who are expected to enjoy good and accountable representation. For those who seek political offices, the main vehicle through which they realize their ambition. Ideally, political parties comprise of people with similar political views, ideologies, aspirations and development agenda who come together to sell their agenda to the electorate and eventually winning elections and determining public policy. Nigeria's political history has seen the country practicing multi-party and two-party systems at different times. However, since 1999, the country has firmly moved towards the multiple-party system where many political parties are registered to participate in politics. While many say the multiple-party system affords Nigerians more room for choice, others say it is too expensive and only adds to the Herculean task of organizing elections by the electoral umpire INEC. Ahead of the 2019 general elections, the Independent National Electoral Commission has registered 23 new political parties, bringing the number to 91. What are the implications of managing a large number of parties as Nigeria currently has? How does this expand the choice of the electorate? With this enhanced quest for internal party democracy and good governance, these are some questions that guests will be responding to shortly.
All right, Aisha Obali, thank you very much there for the background report. Now we have guests right here with us in the studios as well as two of our network centers. First, we'd like to welcome Shehu Wahab. He's Deputy Director, Party Registration and Liaison, Election and Party Monitoring Department of the Independent National Electoral Commission. Shehu Wahab, pleasure to have you on the program.
Good morning, thank you.
All right. Also here with us, a familiar face on Good Morning Nigeria, Dr. Yunusa Tanko, former chairman, Inter-Party Advisory Council, IPAC. Pleasure to have you again on Good Morning Nigeria.
Thank you very much, and Good Morning Nigeria.
All right. And then right here with us in the studios is Asiwaju Moshood Shitu, is National Chairman of the Alliance National Party, ANP. Asiwaju Moshood, pleasure to have you on the program.
Thank you very much. Good morning.
Okay.
And still in our Abuja studios is Mukhtar Imam, a public affairs analyst and lecturer at the Department of International Relations and Diplomacy, Bayes University, Abuja. Welcome to Good Morning Nigeria. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
And we have in our Benin Network Center, Dr. Joseph Aher. He's a lecturer at the Department of Political Science, University of Benin. Thank you for joining us this morning.
Pleasure. Thank you very much. Good morning, Nigeria.
And also from our Ibadan studios, we have Dr. Abubakar Oladeji, a political scientist, Nigerian Institute of Social and Economic Research, NISA. Thank you for joining us on Good Morning Nigeria.
Thank you for having me.
All right, Joy, we have 6 guests. This almost as many as the political parties that we have in Nigeria now.
The more the merrier.
The more the merrier. That's how the saying goes. But gentlemen, pleasure to have you on Good Morning Nigeria. The country has 91 political parties. The latest 23, of course, received their certificates of registration only a couple of days ago. What is your reaction to this development? Let's begin with Yunus Atanko.
Okay, thank you very much. You know, I've been on this program and I've been a strong advocate for multi-party democratic system. And I remember with nostalgia some of the questions that you've asked me as regard to how do they survive and all of those. And I gave you some answers to that. Now, the fact is this. It is good that we have more political parties. And the reason is that people will now have opportunity to choose from all of these political parties. And then if we have them in the houses the way we are supposed to have them, we will have a kind of a robust debate instead of one political party or two political parties actually subsuming all the others. And that is where the issue of this sequence of election, which we may delve into, comes in. Because the chances are for these political parties, how would they even win election when if the presidential election take place and then the president emerge? Obviously, the other political party will virtually fizzle out because once the president is being elected, everybody will want to tilt toward that particular president. And that's why we have been campaigning seriously that the sequence of elections should actually be altered. Let us start from the State Assembly. And be as it may, while I congratulate using Ashwadu Moshood here as a point of contact to all the other newly political party, I want to congratulate you and welcome to the space. Yes, but I am really worried about the timing of the registration. The timing of the registration puts a lot of enormous challenge on the new political party. Barely how many months now to the election, and we are, in fact, less than 2 or 3 months before we go into primary. Today even, INEC will signal the bell for us to go into primaries. What time do they have to now prepare? What time do they have to have muzzle up all of their candidates so that they can now emerge? So I think probably the enable laws should be looked into so that the new political party, whenever they want to be registered, at least give them a room about a year so that they can prepare, so that they can make a lot of impact while they register. And that's the only problem I have. But apart from that, you're welcome, Mr. Ashwaju.
All right, so the ball is in your court, Ashwaju Moshood Shitu, where yours is a new one. So what is your take on this development?
Thank you very much. We first commend the Independent Electoral Commission, National Electoral Commission, the INEC. During the process of registration, I was able to be part of the whole process before the final stage of the receiving of the certificates. Thank you, Dr. Yunusa, my colleague here. He mentioned about the delay, maybe towards the time to the election. Really, during the process of the registration, I will commend the INEC once again. There are a lot of questions, and there's a lot of things that when you are outside, you will not know if you are not part of the process. We, as an association then, we are in haste to see that our party is registered. But in INEC, during the process, even if it is a spelling error, they will write you back that it has to be corrected. I even get to the state that, okay, we finish all the processes. What next? They still tell us that, see, let me tell you, for the interest of Nigerians, not your party, we have to follow, we have processes before parties is being registered, which at the end of the day, I have to reason with. That there are a lot, there may be now an extremist association. Want to come and register. You know, all your requirements, you meet up with the requirement, but we have to know who are part of this association for the interest of Nigerians.
All right, Ashwaju, we'll get into the conversation deeper as we move along. Let's bring Mukhtar Imam into the conversation now. 91 political parties, is this a good development for our democracy?
Well, first of all, thank you very much for having me. Reality is there's nothing sacrosanct about political parties being synonymous to development or growth or whatever you see within every political system or polity. But again, let me reverse back a bit. This is a multi-dimensional and multifaceted issue. And we have to look at it from different dimensions: the legal perspective, the political, the economic perspective, and if you like, the socio-cultural perspective as well, which is a core. It's an integral perspective to be looked at as far as political parties and their formation and their evolution are concerned within every political sphere. This is literally lacking in our case. You find that most of our parties basically do not have a clear-cut ideology. It has always been an issue from the First Republic. But again, of course, looking at it from the legal dimension, the Constitution from Section 222 or 221 up to 229 clearly talks about how political parties should be registered and all of the procedures that should be followed. So, by that, the implication is that it is allowed for political parties to be formed. There isn't a restriction to the number of political parties that the country should have. That's aside. Again, when you look at the Electoral Act of 2014, I think Section 7 to 8, subsection 7 to 8, thereabout, clearly states that INEC has been empowered, so to speak, to deregister political parties that are inactive. And by that, it goes further to explain what it means. If they have not won election at the National Assembly or the State Assembly level, this takes me to the political dimension. How effective and efficient have existing political parties been as far as our existence as a people is concerned? How imperative, what impact have they made on the lives of the lot of Nigerians? Then again, of course, you look at it from the economic perspective. You will come to see INEC issued a statement a couple of days ago when they went to defend the allocation, which the whole country is agog about, running into billions, I think over 180 billion thereabout. And in the defense of that, the first statement was that more political parties have been registered, and so we require more financing to be able to put up with these political parties. That's a burden on us as a people. Again, the socio-cultural perspective. Like I mentioned earlier, our parties have not shown any iota of addressing issues using their platforms, speaking of manifestos, and delivering upon these areas. Well, relatively speaking, expectations differ. People have different expectations, some low, some high. So we haven't basically seen these things play out and impact on our lives as a people. So I feel, like I said earlier, the inclusion of more political parties, there's nothing sacrosanct about that. The Chinese model, for example, this is a country of what, 1.6 billion people, but yet the second largest economy in the world. What have they been able to put in place? Democracy at the bottom, meritocracy at the top. We should be able to understand the sub and superstructure within the society in which we live and apply these logic to inclusion or creation of our political platforms. These are things that are required. We should be able to say, how do we address challenges? For example, we have three deficits.
I'm sorry to interject,
Yes,
Dr. Muhtar Imam. Just to pursue one point, you've talked about different perspectives to political parties, the presence or resistance of political parties, including the economy of political parties and managing them and so on and so forth. But you also made a point, you said it at least twice, that having this many number of political parties isn't sacrosanct. My question is, so what?
Yeah, the point here is this, that if we have, do we really require more political parties, or do we need to have political parties regardless of how enormous their numbers are, that have made an impact? I mean, look at the existence of political parties from the First Republic up till this period. What are the things that drive the existence of these political parties? Political parties have always taken an ethnic, tribal dimension, or even religious, if you like, from the beginning. Look at the NCNC, the Action Congress, the Northern People's Congress. This is what has transcended over time, up till this period in time. It's not the number of political parties or the lack of the number that has not, for example, included the youth within the political space. No, it is a sense of entitlement. These are some of the issues that we need to begin to address, rather than you know.
All right, Dr. Imam, thanks a lot. Let's pause you and go over to our guests at our network centers. You saw a moment ago, Dr. Joseph Ahia, that's our Benin Network Studios. Dr. Ahia, again, let's have your take on the number of political parties that we have today in the political space. 91, as at last count.
Thank you very much. I think the corollary to what Dr. Mota has said is that the idea of having so many political parties is not sacrosanct. And there's nothing unusual about that. To the extent that we operate a plural democracy, we can have as many political parties as possible. I mean, even in the United States, they have as many as 88 political parties. In Britain, we have as many as 117 political parties. Even though oftentimes we only hear of the core parties, like in the United States, we only hear about the Democratic Party and the Republican Party. So to the extent that we have 91 political parties, it's supposed to help, widen the political space and deepen democracy. But whether the political gladiators will actually aggregate the interests of the people and utilize it to, better their lives that is the question. INEC is just fulfilling their legitimate and mandatory responsibility, as enshrined in Section 153 of the Constitution and all its codices. And then, of course, the Section 40 of the Constitution, 1999, as amended, allows for everybody to be able to associate as much as possible. So we can, in the future, it's even going to increase. So to that extent, I don't think there's anything wrong with having 91 political parties. But do we have the capacity, do we have the political will to actually manage these political parties? I think that's why Dr. Muta, alluded to the economic, socio-cultural, and other, facets of our life in terms of being able to really manage these political parties.
Very much, Dr. Ahia, in our Benin Network Center. Let's move over quickly to our Ibadan studios, where Dr. Abubakar Oladeji is waiting to join the conversation. What is your take on the number of political parties we have in Nigeria right now? Talking about 91 political parties.
Very much. Good morning, Nigeria. The idea of having a number of political parties in democracy is not sacrosanct. Multi-party democracy is what Nigeria operates, and as a result of that, you could have as many. But the critical question to ask at this point is, what is going to be the value addition? Another question is, how has it been difficult for the association that have now become political parties to find accommodation in the existing 68 political parties, now making it up to 91? This question becomes important because if you look at this number, even when we had 68 political parties, during an election, how many of these parties will actually produce candidates for such office as the presidency or the governors? The truth of the matter is that, for me, why party is important in deepening democratic process, we should try to put a limit to it. The number is becoming unwieldy. Now we don't even know, it has not even come to the end. It is going to increase again. And for us, with the low political culture, it's going to compound and confuse voters. I mean, when you have a long list, 91 on the ballot papers, how much of political education has gone into the process such that an elector, a voter will not make a mistake in voting for party A instead of party B. While we talk of the importance of party, I think there must be a point when we say, okay, this is the threshold. I think for INEC has done what is legal. The right of the people to freely associate is what INEC is trying to protect. And at a point when INEC wanted to put sanity into the system by using the power it has under the Electoral Act 2010, now updated 2014, the matter was challenged in the court because the power of INEC to deregister political parties is provided in the Constitution. It's provided in the Electoral Act. And when INEC attempted to do it, and did it very well, some gladiators, some stakeholders went to court, and the court overturned that particular decision. It simply means we can continue to have the number, even up to 200, and 200 parties. And so what? What impact? We are talking of political space. We are talking of what impact would this make in deepening democracy in Nigeria? For me, at a point in time, we must say enough is enough, without infringing the right of anybody. If you don't meet certain benchmark, you should be deregistered. For instance, you have some parties that find it even difficult to win a local government election. You find some party that could not even win a simple councillor's election, and you have them on the ballot paper. And you even see the implication on our election budget. When INEC was trying to defend the budget about few days ago, you saw the amount for printing of ballot paper, very huge amount of money. And how has this translated into more democracy? How has it given voice onto the people? I think these are some questions that need to be addressed.
All right, thank you very much, Dr. Abubakar Oladeji at our Ibadan Network Studios. We'll return to you presently. Now, let's bring in the Deputy Director of INEC. He's in charge of party registration and liaison. So you've listened, of course, to the comments by the guests who are here with us in the studios. Let's have the INEC perspective on this. Why did you have to register 23 new political parties, and what was your checklist?
Well, thank you so much. Good morning, Nigerians. Just like all the speakers that have spoken have alluded to, in registering political party, the Commission is guided strictly by the provisions of the Constitution, Section 221 to 223, as well as the Electoral Act 78. And any association that indicates interest, the Commission will go through the processes as enunciated in the law and the party registration guideline, and then we get you registered.
What is the checklist? What are the guidelines? I mean, okay. Just give, what are the highlights?
The highlights of the requirements for registering a party, the Constitution requires that an association that intends to be registered as a party needs to first of all come to INEC. In other words, you cannot contest election except you are registered by INEC. In registering a party, you are expected to do, among other things, the following. You submit to INEC the name you intend to bear, the acronym, and the symbol with which you want to be identified. Because section of the Constitution also provides that a logo cannot be registered if it's already in use. An acronym cannot be accepted if another party is already using it. In fact, indeed, the Constitution, the Electoral Act expanded it to say that you cannot use a symbol that is being used officially. For instance, you want to register a party and your symbol is the coat of arms. It cannot go. Or your symbol is being used by military or paramilitary. It cannot be used. Or indeed, your symbol is being used by any other government in the world. You can see the challenge. And that is just part of it. The Constitution also expects that, arising from probably the experience of Nigeria, I was during the First Republic, the crafter of the 1999 Constitution reasoned that any party that will emerge after the Civil War should have national spread. And therefore, it imposes a requirement on associations seeking registration to have a national executive council that reflects federal character. How do I mean? You should have your officials to have spread in not less than 2/3 of the states of the federation. It's not just for you to tell INEC that, yes, we have them. INEC also have an obligation to go and check whether all of these individuals truly have national spread. The Constitution also expects that you fill your application form through a prescribed form, which is INEC party registration form, and you pay some fee. You may have noticed that when the chairman, when we released the press statement on this 23 registered party, you were told, Nigerians were informed that we got over 144 applications. And through this assessment, the number was being whittled down to the point that about 34 actually paid that 1 million naira. And then out of this number, 23 eventually got registered.
tell us something. Between the submission of application for registration and then the grant of the certificate, how long does that process take? And then what is your due diligence in ascertaining that a claim by an association is indeed verified or verifiable?
Good. Thank you for that question. In ascertaining the claims of the association, I just mentioned that when an association submits its documents, and what are these documents we are referring to? You submit a completed application form to INEC. That form has the list of your ESCO, the addresses, means of identification, of course the party position and all that. You submit to INEC your constitution. You also submit to INEC your manifesto. We also expect that if, like the constitution requires that you must have your headquarters in Abuja, in the Federal Capital Territory, we expect an association to give us your tenancy. All of these documents are given to INEC with evidence of payment of the administrative fee. When all this is done, the law requires that we should tell you your situation quickly. Indeed, when you write to INEC indicating interest, and at that stage, what we check, we call it initial assessment, which entails checking whether the name is okay, whether the acronym is okay, whether the symbol is okay. We are mandated by law to reply the association within 30 days that CO A is not okay, B is okay. And this explains why you will find that some associations started in 2017 and they're just getting registered now. It's still part of following the due diligence. Now, when your constitution is submitted to INEC, it is subjected to legal review. Because again, the constitution also requires, that I'm referring to the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, requires that the constitution and manifesto of a party should fulfill certain requirements. The manifesto should not be in conflict with Chapter 2 of the Constitution. So our legal department will go through line by line to be sure that these processes and that your manifesto indeed is. And then we go for physical verification. That is the aspect that you also need to know. You may claim we have 50 members. That is not enough. We choose a date mutually agreeable to the party, to the association and INEC, when we pay a physical visit to your office. The essence of that visit is, and that is the day when the association will bring to their office all the pro tem officials that they are claiming to have. And then we made them go through, we see them physically, and we are certain that they are truly from where they say they come from. What do we use? We use indigenship, not driver license, because I stay in Abuja, but I'm not from FCT. We use indigenship from each of these states to show that Mr. Mashood is actually from Kwara, you are from Adamawa, this man is from Bayelsa, so as to be able to determine the two-thirds that the Constitution requires that we do. And it may interest us that some associations got dropped on that count. They will have so many members, but they are mostly from certain sections of the country.
All right. Thank you, Shehu Wahab. Let's go quickly to Dr.
John,
yes?
just before we, I'm sorry, I know that we are itching to bring in the other guests. One point here, in terms of due diligence, I was just thinking, I mean, merely citing an individual who says he's from this part of the country, if it's indigenship, will that suffice? And you ask for the tax clearance certificates of those individuals to be sure that indeed they are proper persons in Nigeria.
If I don't, okay. Again, I will go by the guideline that we use. I have not read anywhere where tax clearance is what qualifies you to be an indigene of a state. But one thing that qualifies you that you are an indigene, and a graduate is not working, is an indigene of a state. In fact, the child is an indigene of one state or the other. So we don't really go into tax clearance matter as far as determining the. And again, I quite appreciate your question, because the another provision in the Constitution also states that where a party secure registration fraudulently, the Commission can actually get the certificate withdrawn.
Thank you, Shehu. I will come back to you in the course of our conversation. Let's bring in Dr. Yunusa Tanko quickly. There are a couple of issues raised by Dr. Imam and Dr. Oladeji that I would like you to respond to, because that, for me, is the crux of all this. Yes, register more political parties, but we're also talking about value addition. Dr. Imam did talk about existing political parties. How much have they added to the lives of the electorate? Now we have more parties. Should it be about having more parties or adding value to the lives of Nigerians?
If you have not asked that question, I was actually going to respond to it. I was, seriously. But before I do that, let me just come a little bit in defense of INEC. Remember in 2015, there was the timing of the election. Political association was seeking for registration. Now, within that period, there was a young Democratic Party, if I can remember, and they were actually demanding for their registration. You have a time limit. At the same time, if your application is lying down in INEC for a certain period of time, it could be deemed to have been registered. So there was a challenge there. So INEC tries so much to run away from problems of not having an election, because there may be some individual who may just come in and start the demand for registration just prior to the election. And if you're not registered, then they will go to court and then they will stop the election. So I think some of these things are some of the things that are really making INEC to go the length of registering at that particular late period in time. But the legal framework, as I mentioned, should be revisited. Then secondly, to answer to our political scientists, with all due respect, we are scholars too. Most of our political sciences sit down in the office and criticize us based on the books. I want to put it to them as a challenge today, that they should visit some of these political parties and do a point-by-point assessment of some of our challenges. Because if you don't know some of our challenges, you will not be able to criticize us. For example, the National Conscience Parties have been in existence for how many years now? Yes, you can accuse us that we have not won election, but that's not true also. We won the state assembly in Ekiti State. Now, the challenges that we face most especially is regard to funding. Most of the political parties who find themselves in power use state resources, state media and all to stumble on the other political parties. Now, I give you an example. Even the setting up of INEC has an issue based on constitution. Because majority of the political party who wins election will also nominate a commissioner into the INEC. And the process of even having an INEC chairman itself has an issue. That was why when we have that waste report, that had to check as how did you even come about with the INEC chairman itself. We need to look at it. Then when you talk about value add, with all the dimensions that Dr. Mutar mentioned, I would say without fear or favor, we and some other political parties have been able to add value. Because one thing you can also take away from us is that the way you have 91 political parties, we are employers of labor. We have staffs, and we pay them salary. We take some people out of the state. We're able to discover talent. We discover individuals who have that particular capacity to say, we have that capacity to lead this country. If we have not had 91 political parties, people like some of us who are canvassing and wanting to run for election, you wouldn't even know that some of us have that particular quality. It's that political party. And going by some of our agitation based on, and I've had a lot, people say that we don't have ideology. I differ.
What is the value addition, Dr. Tanko? What is the value addition to the political process and ultimately to democracy? I think that's the key point. Yeah, I mean, we're all employers. If you have a security guard, you have a maid, you are an employer. Yes. I'm saying the question my colleague asked is this, and then the other points raised by the other guests. Yes. What is the value addition with regard to the political process?
The process now becomes robust. An opportunity now becomes for everybody to run, for a chance to run. Rather than you have two political parties that you gag everybody and go there and say you must run at the political, and you see the problem that comes out of it. But now you have an open space. People can go to any political party, they feel free to join. And then they were able to espouse one of the qualities that they have. And so that one add. And besides, apart from that, we've been able to go as far as we can to even demand for certain things that many people don't even demand for. Like, for example, when Femi Falana was the chairman of the NCP, we were able to ask for the Child Rights Act, and we got it through. So you don't run away from some of these particular facts, and then you must be able to basically also identify our challenges and then find a way of solving them. And I still remain in challenging this particular issue of the sequence of the election, which has denied majority of the political party and will deny the political party of making impact that every of our Nigerian person want to see. And we are ready, but we have to have the enabling laws that give us that opportunity to perform. All right,
thank you, Dr. Yunusa Tanko. And talking about the people, talking about the electorate, we went out, to find out their opinion about the registration of more political parties and what value that will add to Nigeria's democracy. Let's take a look at the clips.
For me, I see that a lot of these political parties don't really have any good thing in mind to do. They just feel like because this political party, people are complaining that the political party is not good, so they want to come up with their own too, so that people, just to come make people feel as if the ones that are there are not doing anything. We now that we come, we are here with a good purpose. We are here because we want to really do something. But believe me, when you give them the chance again, they will still end up just the same way the previous ones are doing.
Multiple political party in Nigeria, in fact, I'm not happy with it because this issue of multiple political party, it will make the budget of those political parties, because when a political party is formed in Nigeria today, during the voting process, the government, federal government, have to give them money. So I'm not happy because money that's supposed to be used in order for other things for the citizens are going to be shared to these political parties, of which some of them cannot produce even councillor in a local government. Many Nigerians in the local area, even in the city centers, they are not even aware of those political parties. So I'm against those multiple political parties in Nigeria.
Let me say about the positive side of it. Some people, some politicians, they think that like PDP and APC now they are major party in Nigeria, political party in Nigeria. But some people, they think that when they are in APC, if they are not have chance to contest for political post, they can join they can bring their own party so that they can contest there. If they are the such person, they are good in their constituency, people can vote for him, he can win the election.
All right, that is comments of cross-section of Nigerians who spoke to their views on the 91 political parties that are now occupying Nigeria's political space. Let's go over now to our guests once again who are here with us in the studios as well as at our network centers. Ashawaju Moshood, you listened to some of the comments made by those in the Vox Pop there. But tell us something. What was the motivation for you, for instance, in seeking to register a new political party? I mean, some persons are saying this is back again to how we run our businesses. Everyone wants to be on his own.
Thank you very much. We, as an association, before we are registered as a political party, we strongly believe on our ideology. Doctor, I've said a lot of things, and my political scientist, my brother here in the studio this morning, I want us to understand that Nigerians are expecting a lot of things. There are a lot of expectations from Nigerians, and which our ideology has captured. Where are we today? Nigeria was able to use this democracy to go out of this slave trade. The question is, many political parties are registered, they do not see their performance, this and that. If you see example of many countries, some political parties start winning election even after 30 years, even presidential elections. The Rome is not built in a day. And I told you, based on our ideology, what are Nigerians expecting? Where are we getting it wrong? We have come out to prove ourselves on good governance. What is good governance? About our economy and development, transparency. Look at what is going on in our political parties today. Even transparency in conducting congresses,
Now, adding more political parties, wouldn't that add to the problem?
It will not. Like what I've said earlier, that based on our own ideology, we are coming out with. It gives room to more participatory at the grassroots. That come and prove yourself, come and contest. On that is platform, you will be given your right to contest.
All right, thank you very much, Ashewaju Moshood. Again, let's go over to Mukhtar Imam. Dr. Mukhtar Imam, earlier, I mean, you had ticked off some of the ramifications of having 91 political parties in Nigeria's current arrangement. Now, a number of issues have come up. Some of them you raised yourself. What's your take? How feasible might it be in terms of managing these entities? Look, there is no doubt about it that the kind of electoral system that we have, which is first past the post and not a proportional representational system, is one that almost invariably leads to the emergence of two dominant political parties. I mean, there are political theories, you know, to buttress all of this, but how does this mean? Are you going to have these guys as just fringe players and therefore probably, almost ultimately, some would argue, you know, a challenge to the effective and efficient management of the electoral system?
Well, as far as this issue is concerned, you see, there's a lot of hysteria around this conversation, sentiments and emotions and all of that. Yes, politics in itself is about power grab, it's about interest and position and the needs of individuals who aspire, and then, of course, those who they aspire to govern. There's no doubt about that. We haven't accused any political party from the classroom or from wherever about having not won elections. This is not the point we're trying to stress. Or I'd rather speak for myself. Let me rephrase. I am trying to stress. The point I am making here is this, that we find ourselves in a dilemma, so to speak, if you like. And to be able to address these fundamental issues that confront us as a people, we must prioritize. At the moment, is it the addition in numbers, specifically, of political parties to the existing order that will transform our situation as a people in terms of development and what have you? Or is it the inclusiveness? What exactly do we need at this point in time? We face deficits in all spheres of our lives. There is a deficit, I'll speak of three. There's a deficit of peace, there's a deficit of development, there's a deficit of governance. The question is this: how do these do these political parties that are evolving today, well, within democracies, precepts of democracies differ in different climes. This is where we get it wrong. We often at times tend to mistake the precept of democracy within the Western liberal democratic structure as being sacrosanct or religious, and we must adhere to them religiously. No, it's wrong. That's why I mentioned understanding your society and being able to implement some things within the sphere of your society. And then again, of course, how do these political parties hope to use their platforms to be able to correct the anomaly within the thoughts, the psyche of average Nigerians? We're posed with a problem. Our problem is not just about political issues, not just about micro or macroeconomic policies, but again about social psychological issues. How do these parties hope to use their platforms as a cultural ground to inculcate values in average Nigerians? Yes, I understand the problems were not created by them, but then again, they have offered themselves to the people. So yes, to your question, it is, of course, a double-edged scenario. These political parties they could. But the reason why we continue to stress on these issues, it's not just, we don't look at things from the text, we're not neck deep into the textbook alone. We also understand that there are precedents. We've seen scenarios, we've been here. Political parties have existed. What impact have they made? These are some of the issues that we have looked at, and we're trying to talk about our present. To say, in the past, these are the things that have existed. How exactly have they impacted? Yes, the existence of political parties within every democratic society is allowed. That is what should be. But these questions are very fundamental, and they require answers to them.
All right. Thank you very much, Dr. Mukhtar Imam. Let's go over quickly to our Ibadan studios and hear from Dr. Abubakar Oladeji. Now, for me, I'm worried about management of these political parties as we prepare for the elections in 2019. Given this number and considering that you have agents at the polling units and many other issues, will that be easy for us?
Much. It will definitely not be easy. The truth about the matter is, I alluded to the fact that the number is unwieldy. And it becomes more problematic given the low level of political culture of Nigerians. If you are conducting this kind of exercise at a university campus, you may worry less. Because these are undergraduates, many of them are highly, they are learned. They should be able to take simple instruction. But we are talking of old people, many illiterates, who are just eager to exercise their franchise. And you give them a long list containing 91 political parties. It will be confusing. And one other issue there that the presenter also alluded to was the fact that the electoral system that is being operated in Nigeria is such that it will continue to make these mushroom political parties highly irrelevant. If you have proportional representation, for instance, where you have multiple political parties and you adopt proportional representation as the electoral system, so you have splinter of parties occupying one position or the other, and that they can be talking of relevance. But when you have first past the post, if you have 9 people voting and one party score 4, and the other person scored 3, 2, and whatever, the one with 4 actually has won, even though he has won with a minority. So it will continue to make the number just the number or just for the namesake. So I think simultaneously we must be talking of a reform of the electoral system. If we are not going to have a balance on how to put a stop to this mushrooming of the number of political parties, it's definitely going to confuse. And the essence of voting is for somebody's vote to count. And you begin to see a lot of foil votes because of error at the process of thumb printing. It's worrisome. For me, it's worrisome. I'm not saying multiple party. Yeah, multiple party is the end thing. Many as possible. But there must be a threshold. There must be a point where we say, if you do not merit this, and one of the speaker actually alluded to the fact that many of these parties actually are looking for the largest from the federal government during the election. So because they know that some amount of money will be given to them to prosecute their electoral process. I think we have to be more focused on some of these issues. We want to deepen democracy. We need political parties. We need many of them, but there must be many that are relevant. There must be many that have a voice. One good thing you may not take away from this multiplicity of political parties is that it will allow disgruntled candidates in a political party to have a space to cross in, to go and pick their ticket. But then, at the end of it all, what does it translate to? These are questions that we must begin to address.
Dr. Oladeji, thank you very much for your perspective. Let's go over to Dr. Ahir in Benin. Dr. Ahir, I'm just wondering, and gentlemen as well, if you recall almost 20 years ago, there was a clamor. Editorialists were all insisting that, listen, you didn't need to prescribe the number of political parties that we should have in the country. And this was on account of the experience over the catastrophic Third Republic, where you had a little to the left and a little to the right, 2 parties that were prescribed. And if you also recall, at the beginning of the Fourth Republic, at some point, the Alliance for Democracy wasn't going to satisfy the requirement for continuing registration. But of course, all kinds of, if you like, concessions were made, and ultimately, the AD, got into the stream of things. One of the key points that got articulated at that time was, listen, have as many political parties as you could so that you will have special interests that these political parties are pursuing. If you were in the Niger Delta, for instance, and your principal concern had to do with the environmental restoration, let people recognize you for that, and then you chase it. But scholars also argue that, look, listen, on account of what we had in the First Republic, and therefore now the constitutional requirement that you have a national spread, if you have a political party that has a national spread, you can only ultimately be national in outlook and therefore cannot deal with local issues. Is it possible now with 91 political parties that the new ones can focus on more localized issues and then try to use that as their support base and then get votes, plus, of course, tinkering with the electoral system?
Thank you very much for that question. I think that is the core of the problem. Oftentimes when political parties are formed, they are formed along the lines of ideologies or issues. Most of the political parties we have in Nigeria are not, formed based on ideologies or issues. Now, if that proposal had been adhered to, that parties in the Niger Delta or parties in the Northeast or whatever, part of the countries they belong to can address specific issues, then, it will augur well for the national politics. And, the fact that we have 91 now that are not particularly aligned to any issue, they are not aligned to any political ideology, constitutes a major problem. And so people are not able to really identify with any of these political parties based on ideologies or, issues. It is the issue that, inform the interest of people in any political parties. It is the ideology that informs their interest in political parties. But in Nigeria, we don't have that. I mean, we don't really have the ideology of, PDP or APC or, any other political party for that matter, nor even for the new ones that have been registered. So that constitutes the major problems in our political development.
All right, Jonathan, thanks a lot. We'll come back to the INEC Deputy Director shortly, but we have some tweets that have come in from our viewers. We'll quickly take those tweets and then take a short break for some commercials. Festus Akimboyewa has this tweet. Having many political parties is a good development for our democracy to provide a platform for average Nigerians to participate actively in politics. It will also reduce the so-called special interest that's dangerous to the lifeblood of our democracy.
Ibenemi Dominic tweets, Nigeria should be better with 5 parties and independent candidate system. 91 political parties is a mockery to democracy.
And this is from Abdul Ganio Ajileye. It says, is all this frivolous party registration not going to enrich INEC budget unnecessarily and subsequently lead to the abuse of the funds?
And this one is coming from Anti-Ukmong. He says, the registration of multiple political parties in Nigeria is sickening. In developed countries like the US, 2 parties are prominent, while registered 91 parties.
Untonga Ikbi, 91 political parties is not healthy for our political system. It will only increase voter apathy as much as it adds to the burden of running elections.
Sani Michael Omakoji tweets, I don't know whether INEC is using the registration to generate funds. If that assertion is true, why can't INEC use the money raised from the registration to finance the elections? Maybe INEC will stop the registration when we get to 200, else they are a burden to us.
Law Alpha C tweets, now registering all these associations will make the job of printing the ballot papers taxing and confusing. We know that the INEC Deputy Director here is not in charge of some aspects of the operations of INEC, but this is a pertinent question that has been raised. Yeah. How do you manage 91 political parties in the course of an election? In the event that all 91 political parties decide to field a candidate, and it can be a ground, of course, for a notification of an election if a party's name and logo is missing on the ballot paper. How is INEC thinking about, managing these political parties in the course of an election?
Yeah, thank you. I quite appreciate the point you made that I'm not in charge of election operation, but then some of the basic things are clear. I I think you have said it. One, it is not compulsory that the fact that a party is registered, it must be on the ballot. The election of Ekiti is a case in point. At the time we had the election, we had 60-something parties, 30-something actually field their candidates. And the one we are going to have very shortly, Osun election, we are having about 40 parties in the ballot. But even at 40, the point Nigerians are raising is quite germane, the question of managing. For us at the INEC, it's become pertinent in two areas: the design of ballot papers, and then the issue of void votes at election. And this closely related issue is voter education. And as far as design of ballot paper is concerned, the Commission will actually do its best to ensure that the ballot paper is designed in a way that it does not affect or injure another party. If you recall, in Nigeria, there was a time when ballot paper was designed such that they were on the two sides, such that the votes of one party was smearing on the other one, and it became void votes. That aspect will be handled as far as design is concerned. But the more serious question, again, off school, you have the issue of more parties about primary. How do we manage party primaries? For us, again, that's part of our job in party registration and monitoring. We are going to be up to the task of managing. If you give the notice, the Commission is capable of managing party primaries wherever it's going to hold in the country.
Even if they're simultaneous?
Even if they're simultaneous.
Do you have enough staff?
Good, thank you. Don't forget again that we have staff in the headquarters, we have in the state, and we have at the local government level. And when it comes to party activities like this, the Commission is one. It's no longer a question of, this section. What we do is to train all our staffs to be able to go for party primaries. But the third question is about voter education, the question of how do we ensure that all of these parties will not result in voters getting confused. And I think the point should be very clear to every one of us. The responsibility of INEC is voter information. We have a duty to let Nigerians know these are the design and symbols of all these parties. This is the way you are supposed to vote. It is actually the responsibility of political parties to mobilize voters sufficiently to be able to know that this is my logo, and when you get to the ballot, this is the one you should put your hand on. But what we do for parties is we make available, not just for INEC, for political party, but even for civil society organizations, to partner with INEC in voter education. We make materials available to mobilize Nigerians so that we won't have this problem that you have just raised.
All right, Sheikh Wahab, thank you very much. We'll take a short break now. When we return, we'll continue with the conversation.
If you hear a bomb explosion or gunshots of an active shooter, that might be a terror attack. At such times, always remember 3 action words: run, hide, report. Don't try to run towards the terror scene to save the situation, because there might be a second bomb blast or another attack. Run far away and take cover. Make sure you are safe first. Yes, it is in our nature to sympathize over the hurt, but remember, only trained personnel can help in such situations. When in a secured environment, promptly call relevant authorities and help will come. For anonymous reporting, call 09630-3250-5 or 0813-2222-106. If you see something, say something. Nigeria, unite against terrorism. This message is brought to you by the Federal Ministry of Information and Culture.
Your perfect family is under threat by germs. Infectious diseases are now the world's biggest killer of adults and children. Every day, 16,000 children under the ages of 5 and thousands of adults die from infectious diseases. These infectious diseases are caused by germs. They are everywhere. An average human being comes in contact with over 1 million germs daily in unclean water, dirty surfaces, in the toilets, on cuts and wounds, on your clothes. Germs can cause deadly diseases like typhoid, diarrhea, flu, and cough. To protect your family from germs, use the power of Dettol's One Capful for surface cleaning in your bathing water, in your laundry water, for first aid to protect your family from up to 100 illness-causing germs. Be Dettol Sure, endorsed by the Nigerian Medical Association.
Use Dettol Skin Jelly, which protects against germs for a healthy, smooth skin every day.
Why don't you people sell imported materials here? As beautiful as the shop is.
Auntie. Buying foreign goods does not help our economy. Neither does it boost local production. And the good thing is Nigerian-made products are high quality. Really? And to make Nigeria great again, that is why I only sell made in Nigeria products. Because change begins with me.
I'm convinced. Change begins with me too, huh?
Change begins with me.
This message is brought to you by the National Orientation Agency in conjunction with the Federal Ministry of Information and Culture.
Thank you very much for staying with us on Good Morning Nigeria. And we're still talking about 91 political parties in Nigeria and how to cope with them. Before we went on that short break, Sheikh Wahab was talking about the issue of voter education, how INEC has played its part, and the need for political parties to also get involved in that process. How well are these political parties talking to people, especially those at the grassroots? Because we're talking about 91 political parties. Can you imagine someone who is not well informed going to the polls on that day and getting confused?
First of all, let me correct a wrong impression being touted by some of the response in the made by one of our political scientists. Here is Alhaji Wahab here. You can ask him. INEC do not give any kobo, 1 cc, to political party. The last time they did that is in 2006, and how much was it? Was 6 million naira for Anambra election. So no money is being given to political parties. That should be made clear. Even though we are challenging that particular position, and that dovetails into the question you are asking. Even to print materials, to distribute to all of the to the electorate, it costs money. And that's where the issue of membership dues and all of those ones come into. Political party have to find another way of resources to take care of this particular campaign. And what did we do? Even though we knew we had a challenge as regard to individual political parties in getting across to the electorate, we had a platform called the Interparty Advisory Council. There are other CNPP, all kind of political grouping, so that we can source funds collectively and do roadshows in every political, in every election that takes place in this country as of today. The Interparty Advisory Council and other political grouping goes to those particular states and do a roadshow to educate the people, sending materials and distributing them onto the streets. But of course, that is not enough. But at the same time, this is where a question comes in. Do we continue to be docile with regard to how our electorate are not well educated and that and that and that? And where this particular new electoral act that's supposed to have been signed by Mr. President was not signed. The electronic system
has not been signed.
Yes, has not been signed. Well, so we can say it has not been signed. Yeah, and then we're already going to an election.
No. The deadline is still. The deadline is still. The president is still within the deadline.
If we were within the deadline, when will INEC get the electronic machine that we will use when we are promoting electronic voting? When? Within this period of time? So it's amount to nothing at the moment now, because time is not on our side, and there are so many things that are embedded in that particular new electoral act that will have been an advantage, advance the course of our democracy. So these are issues that we need to really look into. The political parties are not sitting down. They are working hard. You may not feel the effect, but we are doing the best we can under circumstances.
Dr. Yunus Atanko, let me pause you very briefly and then return to the other political scientists in our midst, Mukhtar Imam and the other two guests in Ibadan and Benin. Gentlemen, the nature of our political parties and the nature of our electoral system, that's one issue. But I want us to take a look at this. How can the political parties, that's to say, I don't want to sound denigratory, but let's assume the newly registered political parties who are fringe players, as it were, at the moment. How can they make themselves relevant? Can they begin to shout and make themselves heard at the grassroots and therefore at the local government level? Can they strive to make an impact at that level where we have seen, for instance, the various state independent electoral commissions have virtually, on the basis of the bandwagon effect of the ruling party in the state winning 99.999, almost 100% of the local council elections. Can they strive for a break-in at that level? And then from there begin to escalate their advantages? First, Dr. Imam.
All right. Thank you very much. See, that's a pointer to where I was going to come from. Let's suggest ways out, leeways on how to address these challenges. Of course, we've talked about the idea of political parties and enfranchising people and all of that as being part of the tenets of a viable democracy. It is very imperative that we stress on that. It is important. It is significant. But then again, of course, like you have rightly mentioned, you see, I take you back a bit. You talked about proportional representation. Quite frankly, when you look at the entire composition of those who have been advocating for constitutional democracy from way go, Ali Mazrui of late, may God rest his soul, and other scholars who have talked about constitutional democracy, proportional representation is one of the core of constitutional democracy, which is what we should have. Now, that's why I consistently talk about understanding the sub and superstructure within societies. When democracy was formed in the West, that society was put into consideration when the likes of Francis Fukuyama and even Aristotle of old decided to bring about democracy. Yes, we should have more political parties. We should allow for participation and representation, but representative democracy should not breed mediocre. This is what we're questioning. Again, back to constitutional democracy. We should have that. What you have just mentioned is articulate the entire scenario in one. These political parties that are emerging should be able to go to the grassroots and make an impact. When you speak of constitutional democracy, the major components are grand coalition, mutual veto, segmental autonomy, and then again, proportional representation. People tend to, there's a misconception. People tend to look at that and then they ask you, but we have a National Assembly. Don't we have proportional representation? This is the misconception. This is the conventional wisdom out there. This is why whenever we talk about educating people, the social psychological problems of Nigerians. You heard from the viewers, people talking about INEC paying political parties. Yes, of course, you can't blame them. It's the conventional wisdom out there. That's a popular view. Trust me, 100 million Nigerians are thinking that way right now. You see, these are some of the crises. So if these political parties are, first of all, able to create a platform to educate people, education is not about certificates. You don't have to be a PhD or professor. Educate people along that line. And then again, of course, like you rightly mentioned, deepen their acceptance at that level of the grassroots to be able to make an impact such that when we have people from those
fringe political parties attempt a break-in into the system by getting to the grassroots and seeking, to win local council elections that are currently under the hegemonic control of ruling parties in the various states.
That is the starting point for them, if they are going to be relevant. Now they are late. The process has kick-started since, but they are just been registered and they are coming on board. The best way to now go about it is to attempt to capture the grassroots. When you do that, you begin to have a kind of inroad gradually into the space that has been dominated by the major political parties. Because part of the condition for registration ab initio was your national spread. So if they can translate the national spread, if they have they have a presence in 2/3 of the states, they should go grassroots and begin to advocate, to begin to educate the people, announce their arrival, tell people what they will do better. And if they are able to capture 1 or 2 states or local government election, that will be the starting point for them. I agree with one of the speakers earlier on that it might take them, it might take a lot of time for them to really emerge, but they have to start from somewhere. And the best way to start is from the grassroots. They have to demonstrate that they are closer to the people, and they must demonstrate that they have something unique to offer the people, so that there will be value. That value addition is very key, so that they will not just be addition in number, but they have something to offer Nigerians.
Very much, Dr. Oladeji. Let's go over quickly to Benin and hear the views of Dr. Ahie. How can this new political parties make themselves relevant, especially at the grassroots, as we move ahead to elections in 2019?
Thank you very much. I think like my other colleagues have said, the local government level is the starting point. That is where they really need to gain mileage. And again, that's the beauty of parliamentary system, because, each leader, each political gladiator goes to his own route, and that's what brings them to the national level. The prime minister wins an election in his own, locality, and then by virtue of the fact that he's already the party leader and they win majority of seats, then, he becomes prime minister. So the emphasis is on the local level. And I think that is where our parties, especially the new political parties, really need to gain mileage. If they start from there and, really are able to convince the electorate that they are different, then I think we'll have, a fresh beginning.
All right, Dr. Ahia, thank you very much. Very quickly now, let's take our last set of comments from our viewers that have come in by way of tweets. Victor Hioswama, the question is, if these parties are adding value, why is it that they are forming an alliance with the major parties for the 2019 elections? Abdullahi
Al-Hassan tweets, 99% of our political parties in Nigeria lack political ideology, and the painful part of it is that some political parties are sponsored by other political parties just for rivalry purposes, not for adding value to the nation.
Mr. Ahmed has this tweet. Too many political parties spread corruption. Some political parties distribute money during election among the electorate and use many cheap tactics to secure votes, which is not right. That's the see and buy syndrome.
And the next one is from Akins Dada. He says, multi-party system is well reflective of a good democracy. It helps needed alignments and realignments along interest and ideology lines as circumstances require. However, I think independent candidacy too should be accommodated in a tidy manner.
Victor Onomo tweets, now the best for Nigeria is a two-party system. Considering the level of political literacy in Nigeria, multi-party system breeds confusion. All right, so those are the tweets that we can take at the meantime. In the meantime, we will appreciate your comments as always. But for us now, we are also getting to the end of the entire program. And right. There isn't much that we can dwell on. The issue of the electoral system is perhaps a topic that we'll have to deal with at some point. I know that Tanko will be itching, to tell us something, but we are pressed for time now. Because if you recall, in 2007, when the Ways Committee was set up by late President Yar'Adua, one of the items on the agenda had to do with considering proportional representation. They had their thoughts. The National Political Conference Constitutional Conference of 2014 also had their thoughts, but we've been dancing around it, and some of these challenges will continue to prop up with regards to managing the humongous number of parties that we have and the relevance of these entities. Gentlemen who have been our guests on the program this morning, would like to appreciate you all for being here. Shehu Wahab, Deputy Director, Party Registration and Liaison of Independent National Electoral Commission, thanks a lot for being with us.
Thank you so much.
I'm sure that maybe after 2019 elections, we'll have more parties, probably get it to 200. We also would like to thank Dr. Yunus Tanko, former Chairman, Inter-Party Advisory Council, IPAC. Always a delight having you. Good morning.
Thank you very much, sir.
And also here with us, Ashiwaju Moshood Shitu, National Chairman, Alliance National Party. Thanks a lot for being around. We wish you the very best ahead of 2019.
Thank you
also,
very much,
would like to thank Dr. Mukhtar Imam, Public Affairs Analyst, and he teaches International Relations and Diplomacy at Bayes University here in Abuja. Joy.
Thank you. We also like to thank Dr. Joseph Ahir, lecturer at the Department of Political Science, University of Benin. Thank you very much for your insightful contribution this morning.
Much obliged.
We also want to thank Dr. Abubakar Oladeje, political scientist, Nigerian Institute of Social and Economic Research in our Ibadan studio. Thank you very much for joining us, and good morning, Nigeria today. And now let's go over to our sports desk for what's making the rounds on